Welcome to the Everton Byline. This is episode number 56, the first one in the competitive Hill Dickinson Stadium era, and it's got off to a perfect start. I am Matt Jones. Joining me as ever is Paddy Boylan. Paddy, how are you feeling? Have you come down yet after yesterday? Because it was a pretty incredible day, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, it was an amazing day, and I think you're right. Perfect start in just about every way for Everton at the new stadium. Amazing to see so many positive experiences from fans yesterday. Listen, I know not all positive. I know there have been grumbles over club view and certain experiences, but looking at my phone today and experience people like you and Laura and everybody else, so many people were speaking with such positivity about the place. And I don't think you can completely disassociate from the result there. A lot of this depends on what the team is like on the pitch and whether they do the business. So really good day all around. I mean, I obviously experience it in a very different way to you, in the sense that we're there very much focused on the job at hand, filing when we need to file. I mean, for me yesterday, that meant more or less on the final whistle. So I probably didn't see as much of the second half as you guys, as you were watching. And then obviously I'm not kind of there before and after making the most of the new beer partner and the bars in the city centre and stuff. So do feel like I've missed out on a little bit of that, but still a great day and nice to be in the new media facilities again. Obviously, it was all up and running this time. They rolled out even better expanded media food offering, which is obviously important. So
that's
a little bit,
Paddy. That's what people want to know about the food offerings for you guys.
I think most people will not care one jot about that, but I obviously do care about it immensely. And I tried one of the blue donuts as well, which was excellent. Maybe not £6.50 excellent, but was excellent. So yeah, a good day all around.
Absolutely. We'll get stuck into that, of course, and the performance of the players and potential transfer news as well, with Tyler Dibling seemingly imminent. Well, by the time this goes out, he could be an Everton player by then. But just first and foremost, as ever, a reminder, we are sponsored by the Bridewell. The heat is still lingering around late in August. Get down while you can and enjoy the beer garden down there. It's a fantastic place to go and have a drink this time of year. If you watch us on YouTube, you can see their logo there in the bottom left-hand corner. If you watch us on YouTube as well, we passed 5,000 subscribers for the Blue Room channel last week, which is a lovely little landmark. So thank you very much to everybody who does subscribe. We get thousands of people watching these videos every week. So if you haven't, it takes a second. Just click on the little bell underneath this video and you'll get notified whenever the Byline goes up, Blue Monday goes up weekly. Any of the content that we put here on the Blue Room, you'll know straight away when it goes live. Leave us a comment as well. Let us know your thoughts on anything we're going to be talking about today, be it the stadium, be it Jack Grealish, be it Tyler Dibling, anything else. It's great to hear what people have got to say. You can email us as well. It's evertonbyline@gmail.com. And just again, just want to reiterate, I had so many people yesterday, Paddy, come up saying that they're enjoying the show. They love the Byline. It's lovely to hear, seeing people like older than myself, and then so I met a youngster yesterday who's listening as well. So
you sound so old.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's we appeal to all demographics. So we have to watch our language potentially with that in mind. I didn't realise those youngsters who were listening to us, but great to see, and thank you to everybody who came up to us in the Blue House, the Denby. Outside the stadium yesterday. It was very, very kind, and those nice words are very much appreciated. So thank you to everybody for that, and continuing to listen and support us. Let's get into the day then, Paddy, itself, before we talk about the performance and the players. Like you said, they obviously experienced two different experiences really. I was down there at about 10:15. I was down at the ground doing something with 5 Live. Around 11:15. So sort of walked down there from Sandhill Station, and it was really, really busy then, and people were queuing outside the walls, the dock walls, to get in. I think a lot of people wanted to be the first ones in there, or the first ones to the seat, or maybe people who've not been down there yet to have a look around. And you could sort of sense the anticipation and the excitement even that point. What three and a half hours before the game started. All the pubs were down there. Like I said, me and Laura went into the Blue House for a little bit. That looked great. 10th Street Social was busy. Murphy's was busy. Invisible Women Factory looked busy. And I think it felt like a real match day and like a proper occasion. Going to some of the test events, they felt like test events at times, and you do get that. But after doing our bit with Five Live, I got an Uber back into town to go to the Denby and catch up with a few people there. And I think probably my favourite bit of the whole day was walking down from there to the stadium. And it's about 25-minute walk, isn't it? And just sort of going down that little hill. People who live in Liverpool will know what I'm talking about. But as you sort of walk up the city centre, you go past Costco and you go down the little hill towards the Dock Road. Then the stadium just appears, doesn't it, right in front of you? And that walk up to the stadium with loads of Evertonians there, kind of feeling like a big pilgrimage, all sort of going through it together, like, all united, like people singing, people having cans, people waving flags and that sort of stuff. It was just a very surreal moment, and I was just sort of walking down. But listen, it's not going to be as nice as that every week of the year. It's going to be sad. It's going to be cold. And we're going to be wrapped up warm with gloves and hats on doing that walk. But that stroll down to the ground from the Denby was just very, very special. And that stadium coming closer and closer into view was amazing. And then obviously we had all the stuff pre-match that kind of delivered. I think the club got the tone of things really spot on with There She Goes again. The atmosphere in there, just before the siren came on at Z Cars and the way it's sort of built. I think we kind of said, didn't we, that it's going to take a while for like singing sections to form and like little atmosphere starters and triggers to kind of embed fully in this stadium. But just the noise I was struck by in those early stages and when the players came out, it was just an almighty din. And the way in which the players sort of came out and started the game pretty well, the way in which the fans were sort of feeding off that and vice versa, it felt like a sort of communal experience. So to go back to that word I used in regards to pilgrimage, it felt like one of them for everybody involved yesterday.
Oh, it did massively. It felt like a really special occasion, and that's because obviously it was first Premier League game at the new stadium, and you kind of, whether you're there as a member of the media or there as a fan, you do feel privileged on days like that to be able to attend and to experience it. When I go back to being a bit envious of you experiencing it with kind of family members and close friends and stuff like that, obviously slightly different for us in the press box. One of the things I've really picked up on early doors is, because of the way into the stadium, there's one single access point effectively, which is the Dock Road on Regent Road, the Dock Wall on Regent Road, I should say. And whether you come from north or south, everybody converges on that point. So it's not like with Goodison, where people kind of come from all angles and you might get a trudge of fans going to the game. You almost get like two big packs converging, don't you? And I guess that's what you experienced on the walk from the city centre. That's going to be a really common route, probably the most common route, I'd argue, certainly on days like yesterday, on days like Sunday. It'll be interesting to see whether you're still as effusive in the middle of winter when the wind is blowing hailstones in your face and it's snowing and all this kind of stuff.
Don't mind the cold so much. I think maybe my dad and some of the other lads who we go with would be.
It's the wind and the driving rain, isn't it? So let's see. But on days like yesterday, absolutely glorious, of course, warm day. And the other thing I picked up on is just how match day experiences have changed so much already in this really short space of time. So, like you say, you're there probably 4 hours before kickoff almost, and it's already busy. You've got fans, because it's a nice sunny day and because there's so much now on offer down there, inside and outside the stadium site. You've got fans showing up to soak it all in, to go in the concourse bars, to be in the Blue House and the various other venues just outside the ground. The fan plaza, even kind of 2 hours before, was absolutely packed, and that can host up to 17,000, obviously. So kind of when I walked in, picked up my accreditation and could just see a line of people. Plaza was packed. A line of people next to the blue converted Budweiser section where people are pouring, and obviously Budweiser have had to agree to that being blue rather than red after all the shenanigans with the imagery at the Roma game. Blue logos and everything else there, but kind of people pouring their own pints, and it all felt so novel. But at the same time, because of the way the game went and because of how Everton handled a lot of the post-match stuff, for me, very, very quickly, it started to feel like our place, Everton's place. Maybe not quite home in the way that Goodison was, and obviously that takes 133 years to get to that point. But kind of early doors, a lot of the momentum is with Everton on this, and like days like Sunday, I think, only kind of emphasise that, and if anything, reinforce it as well.
Well, yeah, like that on Sunday is like, I think like when it got announced that Everton were moving down to the docks and we all saw what the stadium was going to look like in your head, days like yesterday are your perfect day, aren't they?
Yes.
Like, the weather's great, start of the season, everyone's there, you know and love have been going to match with for so long, and Everton win, and you have a big party afterwards. Effectively, like that in your head was like the perfect day. Like, I know it was the first day, which is mad, and we're probably quite lucky to experience like that. But that was the idea around having a stadium down there. We all thought it was going to be so good, and like I was on a video this week with the Premier League, and this is not just a shameless self-promotion, by the way, but
it is.
I saw one. I'm not seeing the full thing up until someone tagged me on Instagram the other day, and there's a bit on it from Coleman where he's talking, and like, it's weird. I've not heard anyone talk about it like this before, because we've all been saying like how different it's going to be, and there's new things, and it's going to take a while. And Coleman sort of says, "Is it going to be like Goodison?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, of course it is. Evertonians are going to be there, and they're going to make the same noise, and they're going to get behind the team, and they're going to do Evertonian things." And like, I've not heard anyone really be quite as blunt about it like that. It's all been quite cautionary and a little bit, let's bide our time. It's going to take a while to settle in. And you're right, like it is, all those things are still true, but it did feel very quickly like sort of our place. It was like a housewarming that turned into like the biggest house party you've ever been to. Like,
yeah, and being a bank holiday in the UK, of course, only helped with that. But I also think, we've given the club credit for a lot of the work pre-match. Obviously, they weren't the only ones involved in doing that. The 1878s did a great job with the laying out. I think it was 50,000 flags, both blue, mainly blue, certainly by me in the West Stand, but also some white as well. I think that all really helps, and it does feel in those moments like you are bringing with like "There She Goes," which is obviously so impactful when we think about Goodison, so emotional now as a song for Everton. It does feel like we've brought elements of Goodison with us, and that's down to the people involved. These places are bricks and mortar. In this case, very impressive bricks and mortar with so many exciting opportunities in terms of kind of where you can go and the things that are on offer and everything else. But ultimately, it needs to feel like home, and I think it's the people and certainly the club who make it feel that way ultimately. So it was great, and so much has been said about replicating Goodison's atmosphere. Everything was in Everton's favour, more or less, in that regard on Sunday. But I do think the construction of the stadium, the way it has been designed, does really help. And it's only on days like Sunday when you realise the true impact of that. You're not going to get a sense of it against Roma, really, because that's a pre-season friendly. Here, the noise did reverberate. It did kind of bounce around, as Dan Meese suggested it would do, obviously. Dan Meese, the stadium architect. And one of the things I was asked to do, and this is a little bit gimmicky, one of the things I was asked to do by our office was download an app where you can, throughout the game, track noise levels. And maybe this is not entirely scientific. It's reliant on the app being good. But you could see at various points, it was getting up at kind of 106, I think it was, when the players came out, 106 decibels. When Iliman Ndiaye scored, it was up at 111. That was the highest my monitor recorded it at. And then when I did, like, I'm no expert in this, I did a really quick Google for Dummies thing where it was like, is 110 decibels a loud noise? And I think the first thing that came up on Google via AI was, yes, very loud and potentially harmful for hearing. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely using something like that in match piece copy because it's interesting. Let's see what it's like for future occasions. I will track it now throughout the season and see what it's like, for example, in the derby and everything else. But just circling back, I think it's just one of those occasions you'll always remember. And we've had 2 of those in less than 6 months. Goodison was very much like that as well. One of those moments that you just look back on, and you'll tell family members and you'll speak about with close friends for forever, basically, because it was that special.
Yeah, and I suppose that the difference with yesterday was that as much as that day back in May was because we were safe, because Southampton were down, it was just all about Goodison, wasn't it? And that day and the lads' team saying farewell to that place. Yesterday was kind of twofold, wasn't it? Because I think whilst everybody was going into the game yesterday excited about what the ground's going to look and sound like, and all those things, everyone kind of knew as well that they needed to bounce back after Monday, which was an absolute stinker of a performance and a bad result, and obviously came about in quite controversial circumstances. And when the team came out, I was a little bit concerned again, Paddy. Garner at left back, thinking as much as he did okay there on Monday, didn't really give us much width on that side. The rumours about Grealish being injured, thankfully, were not true, and he did start the game. That was obviously the main thing that everyone was very excited about. And I don't know, I think the thing about Grealish, and he's going to be the main person we talk about in this second point. I think the thing about him in that game was that it was that everyone was on edge, wasn't it? Like first time he got the ball, or first time he ran, squared his marker up and ran, or first bit of skill he did. But the first thing he doesn't notice in the game is actually smash into a Brighton player and win the ball back. And that sort of like set the tone then, didn't it? It's like, I think from his point of view, anyone who maybe had any thoughts about him maybe coming here for a bit of a payday, or he's maybe at the end of his well, not the end of his career, winding down and past his best a little bit, like that moment, I think just immediately thought, well, no, he's not. He's fully invested in this. He's ready to put his body on the line and battle. And then obviously from that point on, you get the class, the ball control, the 2 assists, and as far as debuts go, it's up there with as good as sort of any Everton player in recent memory, really, isn't it? It was it felt very, to me, like, I don't know about you, but I used to always think that watching Gareth Barry live was very different to watching him on the television, because I think you appreciated the little nuances in his game a lot more when you can see him on the pitch, and you understood his appreciation of space a lot more, and all these things that don't really come across. And I think there was a bit of that with Grealish yesterday, where just the way he held his position on the left, he knew when to come inside. These very small touches of the ball he took, various times in the game as well. And it was just a debut to get you so excited, wasn't it? Because the attitude was there, but the thing we all really want, the skill and the flair and the assists, that was there as well.
Yeah, Moyes was asked about that tackle. I think it came within the first few minutes. And he basically, in his answer, mentioned how on Monday night against Leeds, Everton had not done Everton things, in his words. And he said this was much more like a typical Everton performance. And I don't think he's referring to the fact that Grealish shimmies on the outside of his man and puts an inch perfect cross in for Iliman Ndiaye. I think he's really on about those moments, like at the start of the game, that the fans really feed off, particularly Goodison Park and now here. That really helps. What I'd say about Grealish is that, like, his quality is obvious. And one of the things I noticed, certainly from our vantage point in the stadium, is that whenever the ball was out to him, he almost like effectively dragged 2 Brighton players out with him, because they're so scared that he's either going to go on the outside or the inside. And you saw that for Everton's second goal, where they all run out towards him. and he just slips it back inside. James Garner's got more space than probably he would do in a similar scenario. There are going to be games like that where people double up on him, and he's maybe not able to have the effect on the game that he did on Sunday. But if Everton can find some sort of equivalent threat on the other side and can almost use Grealish to sucker the opposition out to one side and then quickly switch play, then I think that can be really effective and potent for them as well. He was so intelligent, and he did so many good things, even down to ball recoveries and winning back possession and everything else. Quite clear the quality he played with. But he also strikes me as somebody that, A, loved that yesterday. He seemed to thrive on occasions like that. And I've always felt that with Grealish. He's better. As good as he was at City, he thrives when the responsibility is on him and the focus is on him. He's got... I need to be careful with the way I frame this, but kind of main character syndrome, in the sense that, and I don't mean that as a negative, by the way, but he wants the spotlight to be on him, and he's better in those scenarios. So I almost felt like Aston Villa, Jack Grealish was more of a reference point for this move than what we saw at City, certainly in the last few years. You make him the main man, everything goes through him, and he loves that. That makes him even better. Just seeing his interviews at the end of the game felt so wholesome to hear him talking about kind of what it's meant to him. If anybody's not seen it, he was talking about how he'd almost fallen out of love with football because of his lack of minutes and everything else, and it needed something like this to rekindle that for him. So this was a great start. It was a really, really good start. The other player to me that really seemed to, actually it's two of them, the other two players that seemed to really thrive on the occasion, one obvious one, Jordan Pickford. It kind of feels like because of the occasion and because of Grealish, maybe his performance goes under the radar. But what an absolutely terrible weekend for all those who think he should be kicked out of the England team as England's number one. I mean, like, particularly with his main competition, kind of throwing the ball in and handling the ball outside his box. I still don't understand those arguments at all, given what he's done for England and for Everton over the years. He's another one to me who seems to raise his game again in scenarios like that. So he was exceptional, not just with the penalty save, but also with the O'Reilly chance in the first half, which was another massive moment in the context of the game. Njai as well. Very early on, you could kind of see some of the players were a bit shaky and hesitant in that Everton team because it was such an occasion. But he was another one that he wants the spotlight on him. He wants the onus. Even early doors, he obviously scores after this point, but even early doors, there was a lovely slaloming run where he gets fouled. Actually, he should go down and give Everton a free kick in a really dangerous position, but stays on his feet and curls one straight at the keeper. Thought he was excellent too. So kind of bit by bit, you're seeing these things. Dewsbury Hall, I thought, was more sporadic in his influence, played in fits and starts. But while Everton rode their luck, obviously, and Brighton could have scored a couple of goals, you did see things in the performance that gave you cause for optimism. I thought, even more so when you hopefully add a few new signings in on top of this Dibling and whoever else. And it's funny because somebody said to me earlier, we published a story on Tyler Dibling, who we'll no doubt speak about later. Mentioned he's having a medical today, Monday, ahead of the move from Southampton. Somebody was saying to me, well, where does McNeil fit in and where does Alcaraz fit in? And my response was, when was the last time Everton had comparable depth? You go through it and you go, you've got Grealish, Njai, Dewsbury Hall, Dibling, Alcaraz, and McNeil. And you could go in those kind of three positions behind the striker. You could almost chop and change, and you may end up with a completely new or very, very different starting three in those areas. So maybe we're all high on the occasion and still working off that, but it does feel much more positive, much more optimistic, and that's ultimately what Everton have needed after that. Well, we didn't speak about it because last week's pod came before the Leeds game. What was a very disappointing performance there. Everton felt like the new stadium and the team in particular needed that kind of lift, and will hopefully carry that momentum into the weekend and Wednesday, and signings will help in that regard too.
Yeah, just a couple of things on what you said there, and kind of going back to Grealish. Like, I think like, obviously on this podcast we sort of look at things through the lens of being journalists and fans as well. And I think from that point of view, he is kind of the perfect signing, isn't he, in that regard? Because I think he's obviously, as supporters, we're gonna, if he keeps playing like that, we're gonna love him because he's really good at football. He looks dead cool doing it. I saw so many kids yesterday, Paddy with Grealish 18 on the back of the shirt, like around the ground. It's great for a lone player, like that's mad, but it's great as well, obviously. Yeah. But you're right about his interviews afterwards, and I've always kind of thought this about him. Like, I think he gets, for a better word, he gets painted as being like a little bit stupid and a bit thick, doesn't he? And I think that's pretty unfair. And I love how he kind of like pauses and really thinks about what he's going to say. Like, he doesn't like wait for ages, but like there's the one with the beIN Sports, and there's one on the pitch after the game with Sky, and you can tell like he's engaged and like being careful over his answers, and he thinks about what he wants to say and how he wants to say it. And I think there's great sort of authenticity in that at a time when so many times, especially with these on-pitch ones straight after the game, like, and these half-time ones now, like, players just go into that sort of media train mode, and they just give the generic answers. But he just speaks his mind and is very, very humble, like you said, in that regard. And I think that's something that supporters are going to really love him for. Like, on days like yesterday when everyone wants to be told Everton are great, and how well we did and how great the stadium was, like, he did that. And I think on days when we're not good enough, I'm sure he'll come out and say that as well and be honest about performances. And like, that's kind of what you want to hear in those situations, isn't it? So I'm really, really pleased for him, and like it's been a great start for him, hasn't he? And I just wanted to mention one other player who you've not mentioned, who I thought was low key quite good yesterday, and that's Tieno Barry. I thought he offered a lot in the hour he was on. Obviously, didn't really have a big chance in the game at all. He had maybe a couple of headers, but plays a big role if you go back and watch him in both goals, both of the goals, and certainly the first one. Obviously, it's a good touch to kind of set the move off. But without wanting to go all Davy Class and ghost run here, if you look at the cross from Ndiaye, from Grealish to Ndiaye, Barry makes the run across the front post that kind of takes the man away to make the space. So, and I think that's one of the things that we spoke about when we signed him, wasn't it? That in the box he is such a big presence, and he commands a lot of sort of attention from defenders. And we've spoken about Grealish making space for other players in the team. He will hopefully do the same. And we've obviously only got an hour, and I think Beto actually looked all right when he came on, much better. He couldn't look much worse than he did on Monday. God bless him. He was pretty poor against Leeds, but some good signs from Barry really in what was his first start. And I think what he said, didn't he? Like, you mentioned about his press conference afterwards that he maybe didn't want him in the team this early, but he kind of had to. But some promising signs from him as well.
I thought so, yeah. I mean, it wasn't perfect. One of the first things he did in the game, I think, was misplace a pass towards the west stand, which I think was about 5 yards, and you would expect him to make. But I thought he was very good for both goals, and probably gives you, I think he's cleaner in his hold-up play in general than Beto, and probably gives you more of a platform to build off in that sense. Moyes judges these strikers on goals, obviously, and I think that was one of his reasons for making the switch this early. When he was asked about it in his press conference, he said, "Well, we weren't scoring enough goals, and we had to look to do something very different." And I think the best compliment you could pay Barry is that for a young lad just starting out, he looked at home in the environment. He looked at ease with the occasion, showed some good stuff, and probably if you're naming a team now for Wolves, he deserves to keep his shirt, doesn't he? Because it was a decent performance in an Everton win. So it was not perfect. No, I don't think anyone would expect it to be perfect at this stage in his career. But I think there were enough promising signs there to suggest that when things start to click, then he is going to be a real handful in the division. There was a lot to like about the performance.
Definitely, looks a very handy player, and obviously sort of fit the profile as well of young attackers that we're signing, and that does take us on to our final point today, which is on transfers. Paddy, I am not ITK. I have got no inside knowledge, but if you go back and listen to the tape a couple of weeks ago, I think I said to you that Tyler Dibling, can Everton and Southampton not just get round the table, agree on a fee, and then both essentially brief that, well, look, from Everton's point of view, look, Southampton have come back in their negotiations and we're going to get this deal done. And then Southampton can say, Everton have raised their offer to match this price and we're happy with the deal. And ultimately, we'll get this over the line. And look, that seems to sort of be what's happened. Obviously, a lot of the report from the Everton side is that Southampton came down in what they wanted from Dibling. I've seen a lot of reporting on the Southampton side saying that Everton have gone up in what they offered and Southampton are happy.
Both of those things can be true, by the way.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I think what we were saying a couple of weeks ago is that so much of it's about PR and how you frame it and how you look good in regards to getting this deal done. I think we sort of said then we felt like there was a lot of grandstanding going on with this deal, but that's by the by. He's going to be an Everton player, all being well. As we record this on Monday, not quite done yet, but expecting maybe announcements on Tuesday. And it, we mentioned at the Denby last week on record that Everton maybe had players who are higher up on the list at the start of the summer. But it felt like when those sort of main targets became unattainable, he was the one they went to, and free bids to try and get him would initially suggest that Everton were really keen on him. Obviously, there's been a bit of a delay that's been frustrating in getting to this point, but it is going to be over the line very soon. From your point of view, Paddy, what was kind of key to this deal getting back on track again after sort of a few weeks where the clubs didn't really seem to be speaking to each other?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think that the first is the players' desire to move, and probably a sense from the Southampton end that they did kind of need to get something over the line. The second is Southampton's willingness to budge, because I said that two things can be true at the same time, and I believe they are. I think Everton have come up a little bit in what they were prepared to offer, but I think Southampton have compromised as well. So both sides were willing to do a deal and managed to get that agreed. It is exciting again. He's a young lad who will continue to develop, and at times maybe the end product won't always be there. At times it will be, but it'll be sporadic. But I think there's an awful lot to like about him. He joins the Low Socks Club, doesn't he? So from a high vantage point, I think I'll need the monitor next to me in the press box to work out which lad with low socks and fantastic calves is doing the business for Everton.
I think Dibling has got the lowest socks though, hasn't he, of the Low Socks Club? Like he doesn't really, like Grealish and Dewsbury Hall have them sort of past them, like sort of half rolled up. His are like basically rolled down right by his ankles. Yeah.
Before I forget, and this is a slight tangent, I think it was it the Times who Times UK that is London, who did the front page today of the sports section with the headline "He's back," and then it just had a picture of Grealish's car. I just thought, you know what, fair enough. Different media organisation, but I like it. It's a good.
Well, Moyes set that up, didn't he, in his press conference the other week? So it still looks the same, big calves and all that.
Yeah, maybe that's giving Everton ideas here. Maybe if they need to do a quiz section in the match day program, they could do whose calves are these with all the low socks, and Tyler Dibling's ankle socks will give his one away. I mean, in all seriousness, I think it's probably best framing him as the newest top target, in the sense that they obviously missed out on a few at the start of the window. They then went to Dibling, looked elsewhere after that, kind of ground to a halt, reached an impasse. Maybe could have gone a different way if others like Leicester City had bitten over Fatawu. But Southampton come back to the table, and I think he was the one Everton wanted more than Fatawu, for example. I think while Fatawu is a very good player and again is promising, I think Dibling, as I mentioned on a previous show, I think his ceiling is kind of England level, England starter level if it all clicks for him. Kind of frightening when he gets on the move and you see this 19-year-old kid, and again defenders are kind of bouncing off him because he's quick and he's powerful and he's got that kind of low centre of gravity about him. Obviously signed with a view to playing on the right wing, but I think it was Russell Martin, his former coach, said on a past interview that he's also played in the centre and his positional future may end up being there as well. All of a sudden, Matt, Everton have gone from having one lad who can carry the ball in Njai, maybe Alcaraz to be fair to him at a push, to 4 or 5 with Dewsbury Hall and Grealish as well. And very simple job for the lads behind. The lads kind of deeper in midfield and in defence to feed Everton's attackers and get them on the counter attack. All of a sudden, starts to feel like everything's coming together with a week left of the window. I don't think it can be Everton's only business, and it would be a surprise at this stage if it was Everton's only business, because I think you still look at a right back, for example, and there are issues there. There are issues at left back, even though they have 2 contracted left backs at a senior level on the books. And I still think you look at central midfield, for me, particularly with James Garner elsewhere, and think they are, certainly with a view to AFCON in December and January, at least one player short in there. So maybe it's a tick in the box for the right wing, but I think they obviously then have to move on to other areas, and they will look at those other areas and prioritise them once Dibling's over the line.
Just on Dibling then, like I suppose one of the reasons you talk about there, someone asking you about why they've got so many players who can play in that free behind the striker. Like, I think it's easy to forget he's only 19, isn't it? And I imagine as much as he will play games and start games, they will still see him as a player who is under development in that regard. But like, how highly do people at the club kind of rate him? Is he someone who they've been looking at essentially since he came to the Premier League, or maybe a little bit before? Because going back to January, there's talk about Spurs and United and Liverpool wanting him. There's talk of £100 million valuation from Southampton, which is remarkable. I mean, what you said there, you think he's considered to have England level potential, but like, how long has he been on Everton's radar for, do you think?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this on a past show in that Everton, and just about every club, to be fair, professionally have a function on their scouting database where as soon as players at a young level make a debut and then rack up senior minutes, they're flagged effectively, and they become kind of potential ones to watch for the scouts, the actual scouts who are on the ground and watching games. I mean, Dibling's potential has been there for a long, long time. It's actually funny, if you go back and watch a game he played for Southampton's youth side at St James's Park, Southampton are playing in yellow, and he basically scores 3 identical goals within the same game, runs through the middle of the pitch and kind of arrows one low on his left foot, because he is very heavily left-footed, into the bottom corner, the far corner of the net, with the keeper kind of pretty much stranded, unable to get to it. He's already had a big move. He went away to Chelsea, didn't work out, and then came back to Southampton. I think there were maybe a few issues there with kind of being in a different environment, not being the big fish in the small pond, and even kind of homesickness potentially. Everyone in the game knew about this kid from a very, very early age. He's always been marked out as a top talent, and Everton will have known about him at around the same time. But it was not so long ago, as you say, that Southampton were effectively quoting £100 million for him. And you probably, when you were looking at his performances for them in the first half of last season in particular, you were probably thinking that he wouldn't end up at somewhere like Everton. He would immediately jump to a Champions League level club, such was his potential. I think a few things have happened there. One is that while clubs are stockpiling, particularly at the top, a lot of them have been looking elsewhere in different markets at different price points and so on. The other more pertinent one is that Dibling's form towards the end of the season wasn't quite as strong as it was initially. So I think that will have put a doubt in some scouting departments, some recruitment departments' minds as to whether he's the one to take the plunge on right now equivalent talent or people who are more ready. The other really important point you raise is that he's 19, so he's still a development player effectively. He's somebody who will improve over time, and there will be moments where, Everton has spent a lot of money on him. 35 initially, plus an extra 5 in bonuses, as I understand it. But there will be moments throughout the season where you would imagine Moyes will take him out to the firing line, or he won't always be a guaranteed starter. So it's a big commitment from Everton. But I think, like, when a few of the top targets went, the idea of signing somebody who can contribute now, as Dibling can. He's already shown he can compete at a Premier League level and do very, very well at a Premier League level. But also with somebody for growth was a very obvious one. And strategy-wise, I think like those elements like resale value and so on become really important. So I don't know about you, but like this to me is one of the most exciting bits of business Everton will potentially do this summer, unless something unexpected comes up. Kind of final hours at the last minute. He was one player that I watched last season. I thought, like, this kid is frightening if it all clicks for any extended period of time, and you just hope now that's in the blue of Everton down at the new Waterfront Stadium.
Yeah, it's an easy comparison to me, but he looks like very early days Grealish, doesn't he? Like in regards to his style.
Yeah.
Playing style and like how he looks as well. Like he's got the headband, he's got the low socks, and from what I've seen of him, like I'm still reading up, and I'm doing a podcast tomorrow with Adam Blackmore from the Radio Solent, who's looking to chat to him about him. So look out for that on the feeds later, at some point today or tomorrow. But from like what I've seen, he's not like blisteringly quick, is he? But he's just one of those players that when he's got the ball at his feet, it just looks very natural, and he carries it so effortlessly, and he can eat up the ground. And some people who may not have seen him, you said there, Paddy, he's very left-footed. They might be thinking, "Oh no, this is going to be another sort of Dwight McNeil on the right-hand side situation."
No.
The way he carries the ball seems to be a lot more fluid, and he's got a lot more agility, and he can sort of find those pockets out with a little bit more ease than someone like McNeil, who I think is sort of a bit more of a straight lines player, isn't he? So, going to be interesting to see, but like at the moment, you couldn't really take Jai off that right hand side after Sunday. Dewsbury Hall seems to be playing behind the striker. Grealish is going to be on the left, so options there. If he's going to start games, then he's going to have to dislodge one of those three, and they've all made a pretty good start to the season.
Yeah, but given how the game went on Sunday, he doesn't necessarily have to come in straight away. They might decide, given how things have gone so far, that nothing's broken after that Brighton game. So we'll persevere with what we have. That functioned pretty well against the decent Brighton side. And he comes on in kind of short, sharp bursts and can kind of make the difference in the final 30 minutes of game. It's great that Everton have got a potential game changer like him ready to go off the bench. And he's obviously not the only one with Alcaraz and McNeil too. I think the difference between him and McNeil, players can be very one-footed, but if you are one-footed and you are predictable, then you have to be electric. You have to have something about you that means that you still get away from defenders. Dibling is much quicker than McNeil over the opening 5 or 10 yards. Much quicker in general. I think he's actually quicker than an early Jack Grealish was as well. Has that burst of pace and that acceleration. And I think you will see him going both ways more than McNeil does. I think McNeil just becomes a little bit predictable on that side, in the sense that he's always looking to get the ball on his left foot, not quite quick enough to work it inside in a way that the very obvious example was Ian Robin could do, and then and make it work from there. So yeah, there are options. There are options for the first time in a while. It's funny, at various points you look back at last season and what worked well for Everton. It was kind of McNeil and Alcaraz and players like that. And all of a sudden, because they've signed so many players, it now looks very, very different. So there will be excitement, I think, when Tyler Dibling is ready to play for Everton and start games for Everton. Let's see where we get to with regards to the Mansfield game in midweek. But it'd be amazing if they're able to have him in the squad there and he's able to get some minutes. That'll be something to look forward to. That's another sellout, of course. 53,000 in for a game against lower league opposition in midweek. But I think that shows the demand to be at the new stadium, the desire for maybe different people at times to attend matches, and different demographics too, and even better if they get to see a new signing as well. So it's been a positive few days for Everton. It's been a really positive few days.
Massively. And like, you've got a situation there where the four players you could potentially bring on at Wolves are Beto, Alcaraz, McNeil, Dibling.
Yeah, and they would have been, most of them would have been starters last year.
Well, 3 of them weren't they, towards the end of last season, when Everton finished the season so strongly. So like that is such a difference compared to what they are at times last year, when they were, well, even at times, on Monday, wasn't it, when they come fill a bench, they had the 2 goalkeepers back on. So yeah, and just very quickly, Paddy, before we wrap up, what do you think the chances are for anything mad in the last few days of the window? Like, I keep saying this whenever we sign someone, but it feels like we spent a lot of money this summer now. Probably getting up towards like 140 million-ish when you take everything into account this summer. Still links with players like Fofana in France, Souček has been linked today by The Guardian. Patterson might be on his way out by the looks of it to Seville. We've been linked with a young right back at Barcelona whose name I've forgotten, unfortunately. But yeah, but still seems to be a lot of players that are being linked though. And Fofana, obviously we know there's interest there. Souček, we obviously know that Moyes is a big fan of. It still feels like they're on the lookout to fill certainly those 2 positions in centre mid and at right back. So
I think
there's potential still to spend even more in the last few days, or?
I mean, I think they've used a lot of the budget. I don't think they've used all of it. So let's see what they're able to do in the final week or so of the window. It'd be a pretty big surprise if they're able to spend kind of Dibling type fees on 2 more players, like another 35 million on a central midfielder and a 35 million pound on a right back. I wouldn't be too surprised if certainly the right back option is a bit more low key in terms of price and everything else. And you can also look at budget deals. You can look at loans, obviously, when it comes to both positions. I mean, let's just go through them all very quickly, one by one. So Fofana, once a Champions League club, most likely to move there. At the time of recording, not hearing that's very likely at all. Things can obviously change, but let's see. That doesn't seem too likely right now. Souček, I think West Ham want to keep him. As it stands, Everton has shown some interest, but I think more likely right now is he stays at West Ham. They're short on players as it is. Patterson, I think the links with Sevilla are true. I think that's a tough one to do, but not impossible, purely because Sevilla don't have loads of money. They're trying to get players off the books to facilitate. At the same time, you have Everton, who are already looking for right-back options, but haven't yet been able to get it over the line. So I think it will largely depend on those 2 things. If Everton do get a right-back and Sevilla do free up space, then I think that is possible. But there's lots of ifs and buts within that. So it's going to be an interesting end to the window, Matt. Journalistically, in a very selfish way, happy that the deadline is 7 o'clock and not 11 o'clock. Bring everything forward 4 hours. With deal sheets still being in play, it means that instead of things potentially going to 1 a.m., it might be kind of 9 p.m. at the very latest on deadline day. And again, selfishly, hopefully it doesn't get that far. If it does get that far, then hopefully Everton get the players they want and still need over the line. Because I think that's the thing to emphasise. I mean, we're all still high on the result from Sunday and the performance in certain areas, the impact of Grealish and so on. Dibling is another thing to get excited about and be positive about. But I don't think that glosses over. It shouldn't gloss over, really, any of the remaining needs for this squad, because it still does feel like you've still got James Garner playing at left back. You've still got Jake O'Brien. Admittedly, both of them doing very well in makeshift roles. You've still got 2 players playing out of position on either side. 1 foot left back injured. Seamus Coleman not really getting major minutes, and in central midfield, Tim Irabunam, as well as he did on Sunday, still starting there right now. So I mean, like, they need more, don't they? It sounds daft. They're on the verge of signing player number 8. Sounds daft, but they probably need 10. I would suggest.
Yeah. Hopefully they get them done. And then the squad is starting to look in really, really good shape. But really upbeat, positive show today. We're going to finish off with an email we had from Paul Chandler last week in regards to 55. Paul sent this over just as we finished recording on Saturday, a little bit earlier than usual. So said we read it out this week. I know it's only 56 this week, but it's a really nice email. He said, "Lads, love the podcast. Read 55. 55 years ago, I attended my first ever Everton game, the 28th of March, 1970. My dad sold cushions in the Gladys Street stand next to the Bullens Road in the corner. We sold out very quickly, and an attendance of nearly 60,000 shook the ground. After 14 seconds, we took the lead through Howard Kendall, and after an hour, we were 5-0 up. Joe Royal with 2, Whittle and Ball. We ended up beating a very good Chelsea team 5-2. They ended up third and FA Cup winners. A few days later, we beat West Brom 2-0 to win the title. I thought it was always going to be like that. Little did I know. I took over my dad's cushion job in 1975 when I was 13 and carried on until it stopped in the early 80s. I know you don't usually go back this far, but the 55 brought back memories of this great team and my first match. I now live in Spain and hope to get to the new ground one day. Thanks for reading." That's from Carla Moss, who emailed on Paul's email. So thank you very much for that email, Carla. Wonderful stories there. Have you got a cushion in the press box, Paddy? No,
I haven't, but the seats are more comfortable, unsurprisingly, than they were at Goodison. It's really nice to hear those stories, and a bit like you, younger generation. So kind of we're almost kind of living off those experiences. We hear them secondhand from family members, friends, listeners, people that write into us, and what amazing kind of memories and players to talk about. You're a bit envious kind of listening to some of the names that have been recited there within that email. So yeah, really, really good. Any cushions as well, let us spare then. You know where to look. Right up at the back row of the West Stand, which is where I was on Sunday and will be for the foreseeable. Cushions are always welcome.
Maybe it's not cushions, it might be like flip-flops. You know, like when people come out the races and want to put flip-flops on instead of the high heels or the shoes, and people sell them. And maybe that's what you need, you press guys, just because you'd be walking up and down those steps.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how I'd do in flip-flops walking up and down. But as I said to somebody else, hopefully the calves will improve based on the amount of climbing we're doing.
It's clearly a theme running through the club at the moment, isn't it? Big calves. Everyone walking to the ground, getting the steps in. You poor journalists walking upstairs, and all our players showing them off on the pitch. So yeah,
it kind of offsets. It's the balancing act of a donut before the game with the getting the steps in. But I kind of feel like the donut's going to end up winning most of the times. Unfortunately.
Absolutely. We will wrap it up there. Do get down to the Bridewell and enjoy this great weather while you can this summer. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like, hit subscribe, and leave us a comment on anything we talked about today. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, do leave us a rating. Do leave us a review. It all helps. If you want to email with anything for next week, number 57, and do like Paul and Carla did there, do get in touch with us. It's Everton Byline at gmail.com. It'd be great to get some more stories like that we can read out at the end of each episode. But yeah, that's it from us today for a very upbeat show. Up the Toffees. We'll catch you again very soon.